What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be changing the brake pads, which are down inside here, and we're going to be changing the rotor right here. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take a small pry bar or screwdriver, whatever you have. We're going to put it between the rotor. You can see it right inside there. We're going to put it between the rotor and the brake. You're going to put it between the caliper and the brake pad. You just keep constant pressure on it. And what that does is it recesses the piston. It recesses the piston all the way back into the bore, so it makes it a little bit easier later on. You can see where the piston is pushed all the way back in. You can see where the piston is pushed all the way back into the bore. So later on it's going to be a little bit easier to put this back together because the caliper piston is all the way back in. We don't have to put a tool in there to pry it back. So, all right, let me grab some tools. We're going to be taking off this bolt right here. This is probably a 12 millimeter. We're going to actually remove that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come down underneath the bottom right over here. We're going to remove this bolt here. Could be a 15 millimeter. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to remove that 15 millimeter bolt up on the top right there. All right, so let's grab some tools and let's get started. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out that bolt in the back that we talked about. It's probably like a 12 or a 13 millimeter. We're going to remove these. It's actually 12 millimeter. Don't lose these bolts because we are going to need to reuse these again. Okay, one thing you never want to do is you never want to leave the caliper hanging by itself. So what you want to do is take a hanger, put it through here, and just relocate it up and out of your way so you can work. Next thing you want to do is you want to check these slide pins and make sure they slide correctly. These slide pretty well. The back is where we ran into a problem where these didn't slide, and therefore we had to change the caliper as well as the mounting bracket. So these slide pretty well, so we're going to be using these over again. And we're going to take out those bolts in the back that hold the mounting bracket to the car itself, or truck in this case. They're 17 millimeters. Remove those bolts. And don't lose these because we're going to need to reuse these again also. We're just going to relocate this off to the side for now. This is the brake pad itself, and you can see where it's got stress cracks right through here, and you can see how thin the pad is. Now you know rust was an issue on here because you can see how thick this one is here and how thin this one is here. So we're going to change the hardware kit on this at the same time. The hardware kit is what holds the brake pad into the mounting knuckle. So we're going to replace these also. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this rotor off the car. As you can see, it is extremely rusty. We are going to be replacing it, so it really doesn't matter if you want to bang it in the back or not. I usually put a pry bar in here like this and hit the face of the rotor right here a couple of times and it pops right off. Usually, but not in this case. Another way you could take it off is you just take a bolt, and there's a tiny little threaded hole right here. You screw this bolt into that little hole, and then you tighten it up, and it'll you screw that in to the you screw it into the rotor, and it'll actually pop this rotor right off the car without having to beat the heck out of it. So I'll show you how that works. Just screw it in, and you'll know when it pops. You'll hear it. the same thing on the other side here. This rotor was so rusted it actually split the rotor. I'll show you that in a minute once I pop it off. Okay, that hole was kind of stripped out, so we're just going to put from rusting. So we're just going to hit it a couple times from the back. We're going to change it anyway, and it'll knock it off. This rotor was extremely rusty. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean the face up right here, because we don't want to have an issue with the next rotor staying on there the way this one was. So we're going to clean it up. Different ways you can do it. You can use a disc like this to clean it up in here. You can use a scraper. You could use whatever you want, as long as you clean it up really well. Now that we got it all cleaned up, we're just going to mount our new rotor. I usually, to make it a little bit easier so it's not moving all over the place when you're working, just screw one of the lug nuts onto it, and you'll hold the rotor like this so that it doesn't really move. Alright, now we're going to mount our, we're going to put our brakes on there. Remember I told you about the hardware kit? We're going to change the hardware kit that holds the brake pads in place. And the way you take these off is just grab them and just pull them. They come right off. Same thing here. Comes right off. Now I just want to point out that if there's a significant amount of rust inside here, you can clean it up with a file. If you have access to a sandblaster, you can sandblast it. Most people don't. You can just clean it with sandpaper or a file just like this here. But in this case, they're fairly clean. And the new hardware kit just pushes right on. Like that. All right, once you got them all in there. Okay, before we put this back on now, we're going to put a little bit of lubricant wherever the brake pad is going to touch. We're going to lubricate it, just like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take out these sliders and we're going to lubricate them so that they slide nice and easy. They just pull right straight out, like that. Pull it out, lubricate the pins, and put them back in. Make sure when you push it back in, the rubber boot pops back up where it's supposed to. Same thing on here. Put it back on like that. Make sure it pushes all the way back in, and then you can see they slide nice and easy. Now, next thing you're going to do is you can either put your brake pad on, the inner brake pad. You could put it on out here, or you could put it in the car and put it on in the car itself. All right, I'm going to put one on like this. I'll show you the other one on the outside. All right, then we're going to screw the bolts back in the back that hold the mounting bracket to the car itself. Screw them down by hand as far as you can. Same thing here. Get your top one, screw it in as far as you can by hand. Once you've got it in as far as you can by hand, then you can tighten it up with the ratchet. And you can tighten them up tight. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we have our inner brake pad is in already. So now we're going to take our outer brake pad and we're going to install our outer brake pad. And you could do this while it's on the bench if you wanted to, or you can do it here. It doesn't really make a difference. Put the brake pad in and then just push it in. Okay. And once you've got the brake pads mounted in there correctly, you'll take your caliper and you slide it over the top. Most of the time you won't have to push the piston back in because we already did that. But actually you will have to go just a little bit more. So let me just show you how you can push the piston back in. Just a little bit more than it needs to be done. Lots of different tools they have out there on the market. You can just put this one here I like because I've been using this forever. You just put it in here like this, and you slowly turn it in, and it pushes the piston all the way back into the bore, so that way it'll accommodate it right over the top of the new brake pads and the new rotor. Alright, then you can see it's pushed in all the way. Now, make sure your brake line is not twisted in a circle. Make sure it's nice and free. And you put it on, push your slide pins in. Same thing on the bottom slide pin. And then you catch your two bolts that you previously took out. Screw them in by hand as far as you can. Same thing on the bottom here. Same thing on the top one. I'm going to go over what we're going to do first, and then we're going to actually we're going to do it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come underneath here, and we're going to take out this bolt here. I think it looks like about a 17 millimeter. We're going to take this off. We're going to remove this brake line right here that connects in there. It looks like it's about a 13 or 14 millimeter. We're going to take the caliper out of the way. And then we're going to remove this mounting bracket, and we're going to take this rotor off. So let me grab some tools and let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a pair of channel locks or whatever you have, and you just pinch the line off very lightly. You don't want to crush it. You just want to stop the fluid from flowing through it. So pinch it off very lightly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that bleeder, the line that connects into it, and we're going to remove that. Actually, it's a 14 millimeter. Now you can take this off later on, whatever works for you. I'm just going to do it now. But you can do this at a later, once you disconnect the caliper. It's just easier taking it off now instead of having the caliper in one hand and trying to break this line loose with the other. obviously we have a bucket down below to try to catch any brake fluid that drips out. Next thing we're going to do is just take out that 17mm bolt. Once you have the bolt out, you can just pry the caliper up and out of the way. And what happens is the caliper, I'll show you in a second here. The caliper is actually frozen right up on the top here, so it makes it difficult to try to get it out. So we're just going to remove it without taking off this caliper. So we take the bolts out from here. There's a bolt in the back here. And then we break loose. And then break the bottom loose also. Show you where they are. That's these bolts right in here. Let's get a light here. Okay. This one right here, as well as the other one, which is right up on top, right up in here. All right, so we'll take them out. We're going to take this whole caliper and mounting bracket off as an assembly. Lose these bolts, you're going to need them to put it back together. See, what happens is the caliper rusts inside here, which causes it not to slide any longer and causes it to prematurely get rusted and burn the brakes right down to nothing. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this rotor off here. What I normally do with these rotors, this is going to be trash anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So you can either bang it in the back right here and knock it off, or you can put a pry bar up against the rotor here and just pry on it while you tap here. So it comes right out. And remove this. Placing the rotor just goes right on. This. And grab the caliper. And I just want to point out, when you put a caliper on, you always have to make sure that the bleeder valve is on the upper portion of the caliper. I've seen some cars come in where they can't get a brake pedal, and the reason they can't is because the bleeder valve is on the bottom. And when it's on the bottom like this, you cannot bleed the air that's in the upper portion of here. So make sure when you take it off and put it on, you put it on the exact way it came off. Going to catch the caliper on here for now. Tighten it away, tighten the top one in. Okay, now we can tighten the caliper's mounting bracket all the way down. Now the bracket's tight. Next thing we're going to do. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this caliper off of the mounting bracket for now. Move this off for just a minute, and then we're going to put our hardware kit on. Most calipers all come with new hardware to be installed. Just like that. And the top one goes in the exact same way, just like that. And nice and tight. Just want to point out something to you. Now, this is the brake pad that came off the outside. And you can tell it's the outside because the caliper, you can see what was on there. This clip right here, we have to put new clips onto the brake pads, the new brake pads. So you're going to do it just like this here, and you're going to mount this clip on here, on the new brake pad, just as it came off the other one, just like this here. That's the disc indicator, which is right here, which is what the squeaking you start getting when the brakes wear down. So make sure you put that back on. Right? Next thing we're going to do is anywhere that the brake pad touches, you want to put a little bit of silicone so that it slides nice and easy. And I'm going to mention that this silicone is a special silicone made just for brakes. All right, and we're going to put this in here like this. Push it into the caliper mounting bracket like that. We're going to install our second one on the inside here and push that all the way in, just like it is right now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the caliper that we just previously took off of here. And slide it all the way down, and then catch your bolt right here, by hand first. And once you have it caught by hand, then you can tighten it up with your ratchet. Okay, nice and tight. And the last thing we're going to do, when you get a new caliper, they come with new copper washers to be put on there to make sure you use these. Don't use the old ones. You'll need to take off the old one. Sometimes they stick on. You'll just pop them right off with a screwdriver right here, like that. The other one is going to be on this nut, on the bolt right here, I should say. Sometimes they're pretty tight, but you just get underneath them with a small screwdriver or whatever you've got. I use a razor blade. Take this off, throw it away, and we're going to put a new copper washer on here, and then the bolt goes through here like this, and then you put on the other copper washer here, and now we're going to screw that into the back of the caliper. But before you put it into the caliper, you have to remove the little plastic cover on there. This is the plastic cover that goes in there to keep any foreign matter from going inside the caliper. Okay. And we just screw this in by hand here. You don't use a ratchet yet. Screw it in by hand. Screw it down as far as you can by hand first. And then we'll use a wrench to tighten it up. And then goes a 14 millimeter. Once you've got a snap, then you can tighten it up all the way. Right. After you have that tight, you can take your vice grips off the line. And then what I normally do is I'll open up this bleeder valve and I'll let it gravity bleed out first. Just open it up and we'll let this, we're just going to let this sit until the fluid runs down from the line into the caliper and comes up and fills it up all the way, and then we'll close it up. We still will need to bleed the brakes in the truck itself, but for now we're just going to gravity bleed it, and then once we finish the other side, then we'll bleed them correctly.